Recibamos con un fuerte aplauso a Michael Bocador.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm Michael Bocadoro, and I've been engaged in dairy sustainability issues for about 20 years. I'm going to chat with you tonight about cows and climate change and the evolving role that California's dairy sector is playing in the fight against climate change. Before I do that, I want a quick show of hands. How many of you eat primarily just to sustain your body? How many of you eat because you actually like food? Right? You're like me. Some of us like food a little too much. There are some people who want us to believe that if we simply change our eating habits, we can address global warming. Not likely. We're not going to eat our way out of climate change. What we eat plays a very small role compared to what we drive, how we power and heat our homes, and how we use fossil fuels to produce consumer goods, all the goods that we all like. So, despite these brands trying to find markets for alternative proteins such as cow-free dairy and alternative lab-grown meat, cows aren't going anywhere. Demand for dairy and beef is growing across the globe. Getting people to change their eating habits isn't a really easy or realistic solution to climate change. And cheese in particular, as you found outside, is more popular than ever. So it's especially true in developing countries where we're seeing rapid population growth and demand for dairy is expected to dramatically increase. And alternatives to animal proteins in those regions are also less accessible and less affordable. True sustainability, however, requires us to look beyond just the environmental aspects. We have to look at the social and economic principles as well. People are reflecting more about their food choices and how those choices impact their bodies and the world around them. Cows, unfortunately, have got a little bit of a bad rap, particularly from those who think we should tell people what to eat, and more importantly, what they can't. Let's face it, people don't like being told what to do, let alone what they can eat. Dairy foods are part of our culture, they're part of our ethnic backgrounds, they're part of healthy diets, and many of us find comfort in the foods we eat. Many of my days, most of my days, end with a glass of wine, maybe two, and a few bites of cheese as I prepare the evening meal. And in sustainability, like in eating, moderation is key. Many of my days end with a few glasses of wine and a few more, unfortunately. But as people reflect more about their food choices and how those choices impact the world around them, we must evolve the conversation and our sustainability efforts, remembering there is an important connection between the health of people and the planet as well. Sustainable nutrition is a topic of global importance as we work together to address rising rates of chronic disease and malnutrition across the globe, while also preserving the Earth's limited natural resources while we're facing higher population growth in regions around the world. Sustainable nutrition is a holistic approach endorsed by the World Health Organization and ensures wholesome, nutrient-dense foods are accessible, affordable, and culturally relevant. This means ensuring people have equitable access to health-promoting foods and beverages like cheese, yogurt, and milk are readily available, affordable, and reflect the cultural food preferences and family traditions in our diverse communities. Dairy foods are an important part of sustainable nutrition, providing children, families, and communities with the nutritious foods they need to survive. So rather than focusing on limiting meat and dairy consumption, we should focus on evolving and transforming our food production systems, including dairy production, making it more sustainable and planet smart. And that's exactly what we've been doing in California. Let's be clear, cows create methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and a good amount of it. Cows and other livestock account for 55% of all human-caused methane in California. Dairy cows alone account for 45%. Even when all that is taken into perspective and consideration, the entire agriculture sector only accounts for 7 to 8% of California's total greenhouse gases, and it's 10% for the US. It's slightly higher globally at 18.4%, but that other 80% is made up of transportation, industrial, and energy, particularly electricity production. All of those major sources have one thing in common, and that is the use of fossil fuels, which is the main driver of global warming in California and worldwide. That is not to say we shouldn't be focused on reducing methane from cows. We should, and particularly in California, we are. And reducing methane from cows and other sources is recognized as critical in the longer-term battle against warming. Scientists see methane reduction as an important opportunity to offset the climate impacts our reliance on fossil fuels. Climate science now tells us that cutting methane is the best and fastest opportunity we have to slow the rate of global warming as we continue to decarbonize our energy system. As part of this sustainable evolution, we must maintain that focus and that important connection between the health of people and the planet. But at the same time, we need to evolve our dairy food system to make it better for the planet. So let's talk about how we evolve dairy production to make that happen. And in California, we're implementing a 5-part comprehensive strategy. It all starts with efficiency. What if we could reduce the number of dairy cows in the United States from 26 million to 9 million and still produce 60% more milk? And we're doing that. We've already done that. Over the past 50 years, we've dramatically improved efficiency in the dairy sector in California, and we're now producing each gallon of milk with 45% less greenhouse gases, 89% less land resources, 88% less water resources, and because we're growing feed crops for fewer cows, we're reducing fertilizer, pesticides, energy, and fossil fuels. It's a tremendous win-win. Those productivity and efficiency gains are especially important in other parts of the developing world that are far less efficient at milk production than we are here in California. In some regions, it takes 10 to 20 cows to produce the same amount of milk as 1 cow in California. So let me put a caveat on that. If the rest of the world were as efficient at producing milk as California, we could reduce global warming by a full 1.7% globally. It's huge. Cows are also efficient recyclers. On average, about 40% of the feed California cows consume are byproducts of other agricultural production and food production. We're limiting food waste and avoiding the need to landfill these materials where they can become and create more methane. California producers more than 250 different food crops in the state, creating lots of opportunities for us to utilize everything from almond hulls to winery and bakery waste. Cows are eating it as part of a highly nutritious diet. And I bet you didn't know that cows are tremendous athletes, and they have nutritionists that design their meals. California's dairy methane reduction efforts are truly world-leading. In fact, California is the only jurisdiction in the world has a statute requiring a 40% reduction in methane, including the dairy and livestock sector. The rest of the world is operating on a 30% methane pledge, and California did it 5 years earlier. 150 countries have entered into that 30% methane reduction pledge, and frankly, most of them are failing to live up to their promise. California dairy farm families have embraced the state's ambitious 40% reduction goal, and we're well on their way to achieving it. By avoiding methane production on our dairy farms or capturing fugitive methane, we can further dramatically reduce our carbon footprint. Equipment to better manage manure and waste is being installed on hundreds of dairies today to avoid production of methane. What we can't avoid, we're capturing, using methane digesters that capture methane from our manure storage operations and prevent it from entering the atmosphere. Cows naturally produce methane as part of their digestion of feed. Yep, cow burps, and cows burp a lot. Feed additives, breeding practices, and other strategies are being deployed to further limit methane production. Climate is a complicated issue, and there are no easy answers, which is why additional research remains a cornerstone of our efforts. Some of the brightest minds in California, across the nation, and across the world are working on solutions to further reduce methane from livestock. We should all be encouraged that some of the brightest people have engaged in this process. And what if we could turn captured methane into usable, renewable energy to displace the use of fossil fuels and not only improve our climate, but local air quality as well, while we reduce the reliance on fossil fuels? And what if we're doing that in a major way and dramatically reducing methane production on farms? There are currently more than 400 methane reduction projects on California farms. Many more are planned and being incentivized by funding from the state and federal government. More than 200 miles of pipeline have been installed and developed to inject renewable gas from dairies into our state's energy system. All total, more than $2 billion has already been invested. We're probably going to have to invest $2 billion more to get where we want to go to that 40% reduction. And what if cows could power the ultimate EV driving machine? Yep, our dairy farm families are partnering with BMW and others, filling more than 13,500 electric vehicles with clean, renewable electricity on California highways. What if cows could power heavy-duty trucks or buses with carbon-negative transportation fuel, replacing millions of gallons of diesel with renewable natural gas, and drastically improving air quality for residents throughout the state? It's happening. California dairies are currently powering more than 3,700 trucks and buses across the state. What if cows could be used to create green, renewable hydrogen to power buses? And we're doing that. We've implemented our first project in California. We're providing cleaner air for communities. That hydrogen is being used to fuel transit buses in the local rural communities of California. What if cows could produce clean, renewable electricity to power homes and businesses? Yep, we're doing that too. Cows are producing enough renewable electricity in California to power thousands of homes. And as amazing as all this is, it's just beginning of the story. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of what we can achieve. California's dairy farm families are continuing to innovate, evolve, and advance their Planet Smart practices. Yes, you can have your cake and eat it too, and wash it down with an ice cold glass of milk. No guilt. Okay, maybe a little bit of guilt about that cake. Planet Smart Dairy, it's evolving and happening in California. Thank you.